We've got some breaking news coming out of New Delhi. A car bomb has just rocked the city. So tonight, we're going to walk through everything we know so far. We'll look at what happened, what the early evidence is telling investigators, and get this, how a completely separate police raid could be the key to cracking this whole thing open. Okay, so let's set the scene. We're talking Monday, November 10th, 2025, and the location, right near the historic Red Fort in Old Delhi. I mean, this is a spot that's not just historically significant, it's usually absolutely packed with people. And right away, the human cost was just devastating. The first reports, and remember these numbers are still coming in, are saying somewhere between 8 and 13 people have lost their lives. On top of that, more than 20 others are injured. It's just a tragic reminder of what we're dealing with here. All right, so let's dive into the timeline, starting with the explosion itself and what happened in those first crucial hours. So, it's just before 7 p.m. A car suddenly explodes on Subhash Marg. You can imagine the chaos. Emergency services were on the scene within minutes, fighting the fire that was already spreading to other cars. But as night fell, the entire situation changed. This wasn't just a fire or a tragic accident anymore. The Delhi police invoked anti-terror laws. And just like that, it officially became a terror investigation. Now, that law they invoked, it's called the UAPA, which stands for the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. And this is a really big deal. When authorities use the UAPA, it's a clear signal. They're saying, we believe this was a planned act of terrorism. And it gives them a whole different set of powers to run their investigation. Okay, so now the area is completely sealed off. The investigation pivots. It's all about forensics now, hunting for those first vital clues right there at the scene. So the big question on every investigator's mind is, what was the weapon? What actually caused this kind of devastation? And they didn't have to wait long for an answer. The source was a white Hyundai i20. That car immediately became the absolute centerpiece of this whole investigation. And this is a perfect example of how one clue can just branch out into a dozen different leads. You've got the license plate, right? It's registered in Haryana. So police track down the owner. Turns out he'd already sold the car. Then they pull CCTV footage. And what do you know? The car was parked there for hours before the blast, which points to this being very deliberate. See? Every single detail is a thread they can pull on. All right, so while they're tracing the car, the forensics team is busy analyzing the blast site. And they get their next big break. The preliminary reports come back, and they point to a specific explosive mix: ammonium nitrate and fuel oil. Now, this mixture has a name: ANFO. And why is this so important? Well, ANFO is a powerful industrial explosive, sure. But, and this is the key part, its main ingredients are pretty easy to get. We're talking about stuff used in things like fertilizer. So that tells investigators that this was almost certainly an improvised bomb, which gives them a huge clue about who they might be looking for. You know, sometimes in an investigation, what you don't find is just as important as what you do. And in this case, forensics found no traces of military-grade explosives like RDX. That's huge. It helps them narrow the search, steering them away from groups who have access to military weapons and pointing them toward perpetrators who had to build this thing from scratch. So the clues from the blast site are absolutely critical, right? But believe it or not, the investigation is about to get a massive break from a totally different case, a counter-terror op that was already underway nearby. And here's the bombshell. Literally the day before the Delhi attack, police in the nearby city of Faridabad seized a huge stash of bomb-making materials. I mean, the timing? There's no way that's a coincidence. Let's just lay this out, because the connection is, wow. November 9th, cops find a cache of bomb materials in Faridabad. Just 24 hours later, on November 10th, a car bomb goes off just a few miles away in Delhi. You can bet investigators were immediately all over this, trying to connect the dots between these two events. And this potential link just opened up the floodgates. Suddenly, they have a bunch of new leads. The Faridabad bust was apparently connected to what's being called a white-collar terror cell. Then, reports start surfacing, linking a doctor from Pulwama who was supposedly part of that cell directly to the Hyundai i20 used in the bombing. At this point, the case is so big, so complex, that India's top counter-terror agency, the NIA, officially takes over the entire investigation. But we have to be super clear about something here. These are all active leads. They are incredibly strong, but they are not proven facts yet. There's a huge difference between what's being investigated and what's been proven in a court of law. It's a crucial distinction. Well, as you can imagine, an attack like this in the nation's capital sets off alarm bells everywhere. It triggered a massive nationwide security response, and it happened fast. The message from the very top couldn't have been clearer. Prime Minister Modi came out and said that those responsible will not be spared. That really set the tone for the entire government response.
And those weren't just words. It immediately translated into action on the ground. Big cities like Mumbai went on high alert. You could see extra security at places like railway stations, and police all over the country started stepping up their checks. The ripple effects of this attack were felt from one end of the country to the other.
So that brings us to now. With this massive investigation in full swing, where do things go from here? What's next on the to-do list for the NIA?
Okay, so they're basically focused on 3 key things. First, forensics. They need to match the samples from the Faridabad haul with the residue from the Delhi bomb to prove they're from the same batch. Second, the car. They are going to trace the entire history of that Hyundai i20, every single owner, to figure out how it ended up there. And third, and this is the big one, they need to map out the entire network. Who supplied the materials, who built the bomb, who planted it, all of it.
So, things are moving incredibly fast. The investigation has a clear focus, and the leads are really strong. But the big question is still hanging in the air. Which of these threads is going to be the one that blows this case wide open? Will it be tracing the car? Will it be the connection to the doctor from Pulwama? Or is the key hiding in that explosives haul from Faridabad? That's what everyone is waiting to find out.